And the joint policy, folks, let's get down to the Army and find out how Sean Ryan runs this out at CAP. You set up those times, right?
Thanks, sir. As General Kern said, I'm from the Combined Arms Center out of Fort Leavenworth. I'm dual-hatted between CAC and the Joint Center for International Security Force Assistance. And as we go through the brief, it's going to go very quickly, but you'll see where our lanes get very close together. Not going to spend a lot of time on this. I don't think I need to dwell in this audience on the current operating environment. You know it as well as I do. Two big points, obviously. The current threat environment is such that our adversaries will capitalize on any seam that exists in our capabilities. It applies across the full range of military operations and environments. And that's one of the greatest things that we have to, as a department, overcome, is gaps between these types of organizations or operations. And it's more a continuum than it is a change in types of operations. And that's really goes to the heart and soul of DoD 3000 and our strategic direction. And towards that end, as we look at these, it's very easy, as we have seen, to stand up organizations or staff elements that focus on one element or another of these, but that doesn't inherently close the gaps, and we have to be very cautious about that. If any of you have read the technical paper that was put out by JIFCON recently, one of the key points that was made in that was the need for commander centricity. The underlying assumption in commander centricity in terms of operations is that commanders know what they need to know, and they are educated sufficiently to be able to span these different types of operations fluidly and agilely. And that's going to be a big challenge as we move Doctrine forward. Okay. One great historical challenge that I know that you are very sensitive to is what I'd like to describe as the 800-pound gorilla syndrome. And in an operation where you have a BCT operating in the direct proximity to a host nation force with a small advisory element or a small CA element attached to that BCT, that small CA element or that small advisory element can't carry the ball, because they will always be dwarfed by the impact on the civilian population and the host nation governance by the presence of that major combat force. One of my favorite historical documents, I like history, is a 1970 staff study that was written by the 300th CA Command. And in that, the title of it was something along the lines of the impact of major combat forces on the advisory elements. You could take out the words Vietnam and place Iraq in it, and it's almost a tit for tat experience to what many of you and I have witnessed over there. We continue to relearn lessons that we have learned before, hence the title Re-Emergent Requirements. I've used this slide in briefing Norm's boss, as well as members of joint staff and other decision makers. In the center of this is my area of expertise, security force assistance, and where JSISFA is a joint center of excellence in the range of skills associated with organizing, training, and equipping host nation security forces and foreign security forces plays. However, that is only relevant to the center of security. Obviously, security is only one aspect and does buy time. Without developing the broader governance capability to which you're so critical, doesn't play. And I'm not going to dwell on the issue of the interagency capacity. That's going to be a challenge that this nation faces, and there's still a huge debate on how, within our own ranks, on whether we should grow advisors or whether we should main specialists. There's a balance. The truth lies in the middle. I'm fortunate in my job to have the opportunity to play in all three of these realms. At the policy level, working with Norm and a lot of his folks, the Joint Staff, working with the combatant commanders. Right now, obviously, most of my work is spent with CENTCOM. And then also on the training and equipping side over in the military departments. But at the end of the day, what Doctrine has to do is it has got to bring all of this into focus at an executable level to that guy on the ground. And we've got gaps. We've got a greater number of general purpose forces out serving as combat advisors right now than is normally fielded by a full special forces group. And there's no executable doctrine for it. There's equal numbers, okay, that are spanning the operational continuum. To this point, we have to take a real hard look at our roles and responsibilities and blend that together. I had the opportunity earlier this week to spend some time in Quantico with the Irregular Warfare Conference down there. An interesting point was made in working in the panel that I sat on, and that was the difference between how the Marine Corps looks at doctrine and approaches doctrine and how the Army typically approaches doctrine. And I have to say that the Marine Corps I think they have a great approach to it, and it's an approach that we need to take a real hard look at. And from that standpoint, what I mean is they look at it more from an enduring principle, philosophy type approach. Doctrine has got to provide our leadership with a framework that is agile and flexible enough to be applied across the operational continuum and these high-threat environments. I don't know about you, but I've seen, quote, low-intensity conflict operations turn pretty darn intense really fast. We can't silo ourselves and niche away. We're going to have to become that agile, capable force that's described in all of our strategic documents, and that's going to be one of the starting places. Okay. Towards that end, okay, we all know the different levels of mental tasks ranging from individual up through collective through UGITL. We understand comprehensive and integrated. The bottom line is seamless. We've got to be able to operate, and we've got to be able to sustain. Any particular solution we face or offer has got to not only provide capability and capacity, but it's also got to be sustainable over time. That's the whole idea of protracted war that Mao laid out in his doctrine. Protracted war. Wear them down. If they can wear us down, they will. So we've got to work together. Intellectual capital is going to be the key to this at the end of the day. General Hashem's presentation was spot on. We've got to be able to educate leaders that can apply doctrine and apply lessons learned, not from today, but throughout history, to find the problem, identify, apply that critical thinking, and solve the problem on the ground, whether it fits in the MOS or not. And the bottom line on that experiential learning is so critical. You've got to be able to attract people with the right type of experience who can plan these types of operations, because these operations are no longer really operations, they're campaigns. If we're going to be engaged in a country for years and years, it kind of goes beyond the scope of an operation. We're talking campaign type mentality. This is a real change in our internal DNA. And everybody needs to know, and that's a theme I've heard throughout. That concludes my comments.